Hey everyone, my name is Marissa, and I am very happy to offer you guys these divination sessions. We are diving into your next leap of faith. Now, this was something that intuitively, I feel like maybe one of you guys asked me to do a reading on this, but also it just seems like a lot of people are feeling very antsy and just like anxious, might not be the best word, but just ready for their next step. And my hope with everything that I put out on the internet is to just push you guys in the direction that you deep down probably already know that you need to go, or at the very least to see just where you're currently at. And, it's also very natural to have periods where we feel like we're in a plateau or in a lull, and that's just part of the human experience, right? So we're just going to get a good gauge on where you guys are at. 5 piles for you to sift through and choose from today. If you're guided to more than one, I would honor that. But as always, don't overthink it. We're going to hop right into these sessions. Hey everyone, if you chose group number 1, this is your reading for your next leap of faith. So we have, for your cards today, we have poised. We have all paths lead home, inner authority, intuition, turn your gaze within. Y'all, I did my nails for this one because I'm always apologizing for the state of my nails. We have the High Priestess. We have Wisdom. The Hierophant here with Wisdom. Very interesting. Beautiful energy so far. We have the World. And these are just like, I don't know where I got these little inspiration cards, but no other words but awesome. I think this was like gifted or something, but this is like, I don't know, something from like Target or something, I bet. I don't know. So, okay, my pile number 1s. It seems like your next leap of faith. I feel like with the poised card always reminds me of a pause. And because you have the World card coming up here, I feel like your next leap of faith is like you are currently in the brooding period or the marinating period of like closing off old cycles, right? So I feel like in terms of getting more clarity on your next leap of faith, this is one of those piles or one of those readings that I feel like Spirit is like you are currently closing a chapter, and it's very essential for you to get clear yourself on where to go. This is definitely a pile where I feel like Spirit really is driving home the point of trusting yourself above anything else. And tarot is awesome. And we have all different forms of reading energy, astrology, reading our soul's blueprint, why we came here, what it is that we're here to do overall. However, with this group, this is really telling me that you're at a level or just at a phase of your journey where it's really essential that you turn within. I mean, with the Hierophant, with the High Priestess, and with inner authority, intuition, turn your gaze within, all paths lead home. This is telling me ultimately that we can never do any wrong on this plane of existence, right? But this is really telling me that you have a lot of wiggle room in terms of where you go from here. And at the very least, Spirit is wanting to strengthen your own intuitive capacities, your own intuitive muscle. So right now, you might feel like this feels pretty good because it says no other words but awesome. So at the very least, I feel like you guys are in a good space and have been working towards your dreams or progressing towards things. And with this poised card, I feel like I'm not really getting a sense that you guys are tripping about where to go. But at the very least, I feel like you feel, when we just get this intuition or we can just get this sense that something's going to change or something's got to change because things have been too consistent for too long, right? And so you're like ready for the next unfolding, ready for that next phase. And a lot of this has to do with, with this Hierophant card, the Wisdom card, and the High Priestess, which are all cards about turning within and understanding you can't take a wrong direction. And when you really are embodying those codes of like, this world is magic, right? It's awesome. It creates, it sparks awe when you really think about all of the things that need to work correctly and all of the components, like the elements, the, chemistry, all of the things that have come together in such a prolific way. I'm not sure if that's a word, but in such an incredible way to make this experience what it is. If you really consider that, couple that with the understanding that you don't really have to do anything and you're in a relaxed position, there's a lot coming through about maintaining a sense of relaxation in terms of where you're going from here, because it's only from that state of peace. When you're creating from a level of peace and not a level of angst and anxiety and I need to prove myself, or I need to get the show on the road, A, B, C, and D, you're much more likely to have greater access to your soul stream, right? So intuition with the High Priestess and the Hierophant card is really to me saying that Spirit is really wanting you to strengthen your connection with your own soul stream and relying less on other people or other templates that you might have adopted along the way. So it's so funny that we're starting these readings off with something as convoluted as this, or it can be, or maybe this is really saying that, you know, we want you to see, your guides want you to see what can happen when you're really leaning on your own intuition more, right? To trust yourself even more. But it seems like you guys are in a period where you are like being prepared for something. You've been prepared, right? Everything is like a beautiful unfolding, especially when you're tapping into the 0 point field. I mean, you just see how it's not as linear as we think. Things are just like overlapping, right? It's folding onto itself. And so I feel like you guys might be in a space of feeling into your next step, your next timeline. And maybe, you know, you've been getting downloads, right, of what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, but you also understand that there's some loose ends that you need to finish up in whatever, some loose strings that you need to tie off in whatever your current paradigm and reality looks like. But this is essentially saying your guide's coming through and saying that you can't mess up, and that you've been receiving a hell of a lot of guidance from the astral realms and from your higher self, and that it's important that you act on that, right? And that you, you know, what I love about this World card is it almost looks like this being is holding a magic wand, right? And it kind of reminds me of the magician in the sense that anything is possible and that you have everything that you need already, right? No other words but awesome. So I feel like your next leap of faith is like strengthening your faith and strengthening your trust in your own self and trusting the ebbs and flows of life. And if there's any concern as to like which path to choose, or if there's any concern of, is this going to steer me in the wrong direction? You know, your guides are really coming through strongly and saying that, again, there's no wrong decision that you can make, right? Some of you guys might need to really hear that over and over again. There's no wrong decision. There's like, not taking action is action within itself. And sometimes knowing when to pause, knowing when to act, that within itself is our greatest leap of faith, is understanding that we don't always have to act, right? Because there's a lot with the Hierophant and the High Priestess. There's a lot here about going into meditation, taking time to really soak in that divine feminine aspect of opening yourself up to infinite intelligence and seeing what comes through there and acting upon that. And putting less stress on like, okay, material needs. And while that is obviously very important and a really relevant part of the human experience, like doing what you got to do, but in whatever ways you can, leaving yourself a pocket and an area in your psyche and your reality to where you can really leave it open and leave it open. Like as you're making that transition into a paradigm where you're living much more in logic and structure, it's like creating a pocket, creating a safe container for that transition to happen, to where you are much more times than not going with the flow and going with the Tao, right? This to me, I'm hearing a lot about the soul's blueprint, and you're activating more of that and accessing more of that when you're in meditation, right? It's like one of those things where, you know, they say that prayer is when you speak to God, or prayer is when you connect, when you are kind of putting questions out to your higher self and to the universe. And meditation is when you have the opportunity to have those things answered, to have questions answered, and to where you'll get visions and insights about what to do that might not always make sense in directions that you might not have chosen or that you might not have conceptualized. And they can actually close the gap a lot sooner, right? But it's because you're choosing to access and activate the magic, right? You're choosing to lean into these universal forces, leading not on your own understanding. And because so, things happen a lot more seamlessly than you might could have ever like imagined or created if you were just going based off of like what your limited self could do, right? So your next leap of faith is really about strengthening your intuition and not needing other people to tell you what it is that you already know deep down that you need to do, right? Because I am getting a sense that you're being prepared for something. You can feel it. You're tying off old ends. You can feel old karmic cycles ending. And now you're kind of like, this is something that I feel like you've been aware of. You've been aware of for a long time about your soul's purpose, what you want to do, what you want to bring to the planet. And so now, like, you're in that phase of marinating on what you have available to you now, not waiting to be perfect and just like taking the step before it actually makes sense. That's what true faith is. Taking the steps before and without even knowing if it's going to work out, right? That's what, one of the most sacred texts in India is all about. The Bhagavad Gita is about doing the action that makes the most sense because you're connecting with spirit, and then releasing the fruits of what you expect to get from that, and trusting that ultimately you will be guided into a direction that will holistically sustain yourself and holistically sustain you, right? Because you're going to the source of what made this reality possible for you in the first place. And then you're going to the level, you're tuning into the level of what is relevant for you as an individuation, a much more personal connection to, it's like a level down, right? Your higher self is still, obviously, we're all connected to source, but there's multiple levels to this. And so your higher self is much more personalized to this individuation, right? So I feel like this is really about tapping into that blueprint and trusting what comes through there, because it's like where you're going, you're relying a lot less on, your leap of faith is relying less on these external means and more so of you're going straight to source, right? You're going straight to, pulling back the curtain, and you're going straight to the man, the woman itself, so to speak. You're going straight to the top, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and not waiting for permission, not waiting to go through all these other levels. You're just like, all right, let's get this show on the road. And this is something you've been prepared for, and it's probably things that you have acted on in smaller ways. And, in the world of spirit, big and smaller, they're one and the same. So as much as you can, when you're utilizing your intuition to make choices in your day-to-day, you're going more with flow. And just like when you have those, like, man, I just got back from Disneyland, for example, and it was so cool to see the difference of like going in flow. So like, okay, this is what feels right now. This might deviate from our normal plan, right? Or from what we had planned, but let's just go here and here. And it was so crazy to see how, we didn't wait in any lines longer than 30 minutes at Disneyland. And it was just so cool to see how things effortlessly unfolded, and how we, caught certain shows because we were in the right place at the right time. And we were really in flow with the fabric of what made it a really beautiful experience. And I had even mentioned, to the group of like, oh my gosh, what if it's so cool to see this work real time? And so in things like that, when you see things like that happen, when you have that type of evidence, it's a lot easier. That happens enough times to where it's a lot easier. Like, okay, I can apply this to all areas of my life. All right, I might have had a plan, but if I just let myself flow with it, it's going to happen. It's going to feel much more magical. And you're going to know that you're being guided. You're just following the breadcrumb trail that is being left behind by your higher self or your future self, is something you can even say, right? So this next leap of faith is really deepening into yourself, into your own wisdom, and trusting yourself above anything else, right? And yeah, this is very beautiful energies. Pile number 1. If this resonated, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below if you feel called to. Subscribe to my channel if you've been here before. Join the community. I really love connecting with you guys. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. What's up, pile number 2? Here is your reading for your next leap of faith. We're going to get right into it. So your cards today, you have mending. You have empathic starseed, energetic sovereignty, absorbing what's not yours. All right, so we're already getting a clear picture. I'm getting a clear picture. I don't know about y'all. Just kidding. Love you, pile 2. Okay, we have King of Swords coming through. I did my nails today just for this. Okay. I was tired of apologizing for my nails looking ratchet. Okay, we have obstacles and challenges. And we have temperance. Okay, interesting that we have temperance coming up with this mending card. And then we have trust your heart. Okay, so interesting. Pile number 2. I feel like your next leap of faith is... I feel like your next leap of faith has to do with being more authoritative within yourself and within your paradigm. And with this mending and this temperance card, this is telling me that there's like a permission slip. You've received many permission slips to alchemize this understanding of what it means to be very sensitive, a very sensitive individual. Because we have trust your heart, and the way that it's lined up in my spread here, it's coming right underneath wisdom. And this has definitely been something that Spirit has been communicating to me a lot through very real-time experiences with other people, with teachers, etc. Of sometimes, like when we are a very empathetic individual, or when we just have a heart that loves, right, and that continues to be met by challenges and by people that, betray that trust, or that could seem to give us invitations to close down our heart, right? It's like that is a growing ground for someone to deepen into wisdom without allowing the heart to take that journey as well. And so that's when you can get this kind of like coldness that you can feel from people, right? And the King of Swords is actually a very positive card. That's a card about cutting through the bullshit, being able to see things for what they are, being very connected to the astral realms, the ethereal realms, right? But when I feel like this is saying that your next leap of faith is in not taking the bait of what these past experiences might have suggested to you, right? And I feel like this is also saying that there might be an invitation that you have, or that you're going to receive from, someone who might have significant air placements. And it's like the heart is the intuitive compass, right? And also there's a lot coming through here about the nervous system, and maybe having gone through experiences that altered your nervous system, and so created kind of like PTSD side effects, or like social anxiety, or like an experience where you feel unsafe to express yourself, or unsafe in your body, or just like anxious, And so there's a lot here about putting the horse in front of the carriage. And so as you're mending the nervous system, as you're mending these false perceptions of self, it's like that is going to prepare you to take a leap of faith that I feel like is going to be very obvious to you, right? But again, with the obstacles and challenges, I feel like this is just acknowledging, the 5 cards are all about acknowledging where you're actually at, and not wishing things to be different, and not wishing, like being a house divided against yourself, where you're like, you can conceptualize that you're God, or you can conceptualize these new directions, and you can visualize all these great profound paradigms and what you want to experience in your life and what you want to share with other people. But then your nervous system feels all fucking funky, and you feel unsafe to even be in your body, right? And so there's an opening of the heart, and an opening of those experiences, and why they happened, and how in some senses it was to be a safeguard, so you don't become, because I am getting, you guys are very wise, right? And one of the greatest gifts of an empath is being able to experience, like deeply feel into the realms of other people. So you're not just talking at people, but you're really sharing their suffering with them, right? That's a true bodhisattva, is like, we're sharing this human journey together. I'm not talking at you or talking down to you, or like, you can really meet someone else where they're actually at when you've gone through it. And so it seems like your next leap of faith, your next, is that what we're talking about? Leap of faith. Sorry guys. Your next leap of faith really has to do with like keeping your heart open, trusting your heart, trusting that, these reflections, these situations that have been given to you weren't given to you out of punishment or like karmic retribution, but these were safeguards, and these were things that I feel like in some way you might be helping other people through. But on another level, like when you go through these experiences, you guys, like I'm sure just as much as I do, when you go through these experiences and you see firsthand your levels of resiliency, that's a strength that can be untouched. That's a type of confidence you gain from that it can't be taken away, and it can't be mimicked, and it's not something that you can like pretend. It's not like a fake it till you make it. It's like this leap of faith is like an alchemization where you're going into the feelings, you're going into the nervous system, you're, in whatever ways utilizing breath work, utilizing all of the different resources that we have available to us that resonate to you in order to help mend whatever traumatic things have happened to your field, right? And so I feel like this is saying that maybe there has been some level of avoidance of this, and you might tend to be very wise and to see, right? You have a very active third eye and crown, like very balanced. And so you understand things, you understand the nature of reality. Not only that, but you can feel, like, I'm getting the sense of like having very active psychic gifts, but grounding that and not using that as a way to bypass, right? And as a way to override the fact that this human experience is very relevant. So for you guys, it feels like much less of and I'm not surprised that people join my channel, much less of an external leap of faith. And this is like a leap unto yourself, into, keeping your heart open in hell, as Ram Dass would say, is the ultimate form of faith. The ultimate leap of faith is to, how do I keep my heart open when there are so many seeming permission slips around me to close it down? So many things around me and that are happening on this planet that would like to convince me it's not a safe place to have your heart open. It kind of goes back to that, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, right? Because, when you're seeing through the multiplicity, through the lenses that you guys are seeing too, you ultimately understand that all of these things, all of these layers are relevant, right? And there is, at the end of the day, there is nothing to fear, right? Because it's like the brighter the light, the darker the shadow that's cast, right? So you understand that it's just the nature of this plane of existence. And so I feel like there might have been some resistance to, like, maybe you feel vulnerable, maybe you don't like feeling rehashing these old emotions. Or like for me, for example, there was like, I never associated myself with the word trauma. It wasn't until I was 25 and I had met someone that really was a very pure and very beautiful being that opened my eyes to the things that I'd gone through in childhood and how that deeply affected my nervous system, right? And so on the surface, people can have all of these assumptions about you, right? I've had people make a lot of assumptions about me throughout life, but it was like, there were so many veils of protection that I couldn't actually authentically enjoy my experiences. I couldn't actually feel like I could make that connection with people that I really wanted to, because there was a mistrust and my nervous system was shot and there was PTSD and, all of that. And so when you actually lean into it and see it for what it is, again, leaning into the shadow, seeing what it is, it's just a distortion of light, right? That has been unprocessed. Then that's when you make the transition into opening your heart and coming back into your body. You have to be connected to the body, to the present moment, to have access to the portal that is the heart, right? And then from here, it's like, once this transmutation process has happened and this integration has happened, then I feel like when opportunities do come your way, you're going to know which ones to say yes to and which ones to say no to, because you guys are already extremely tapped in. Right? It's just about, it's really just about becoming a unified personality. And that has to do with the subtle body, which in my understanding, what I've learned, what I intuit is equivalent, that's like a more spiritual or like astral way, cosmic way to describe the nervous system. I feel like they go hand in hand. And so once that happens, I feel like you will start to see more evidence of heart-based beings in your life and, new opportunities that do feel very exciting, right? And so because we do have the king of air, that is telling me that, it's like, that's a gift. The air element is very powerful. It's very wise. These are very optimistic. These are like the visionaries, right? However, when it's coupled with, when the air element is coupled with ungrounded sense, then that's when it turns into anxiety, right? And so there's a sweetness that's needed here to balance that air element. And so the sweetness, the access, the portal to that is your heart. And so, this is almost, again, coming back to that initial, thing that was coming through. These are safeguards, right? Safeguards so you don't become too wisdom oriented. because that's when you meet very narcissistic personalities. That's when you have very intelligent beings, but there's just like a coldness to them that they aren't treating people like people, and they're seeing them more as means to an end, right? And you guys are definitely like, that is not in your blueprint to be like that. I mean, it's always a potential for all of us, but when I say, you know, because free will does exist, you're going to enjoy the experience very much more when you're aligning with a blueprint and what you came here to be. And you came here to be a very empathic individual, very heart-guided individual, very wise, very wisdom-oriented individual, but while bringing the heart with you. Okay, pile 2. So I'm going to leave this reading here for now. I hope this brought clarity, confirmation, peace to your heart today. And if it did, please give this video a thumbs up at the very least. I love connecting with you guys in the comment section. If that resonates, please do that. And subscribe if you've been here before, and I really hope to see you soon. Hey, pile number 3, here is your reading for your next leap of faith. We're going to jump right into it. So your first card for your next leap of faith, we have co-create. And I just want to point out how like there's like the leopard inside this egg. It's like a leopard like design, I guess. And then you have the leopard up there, or that's definitely a cheetah. But y'all get what I mean. So we have co-create, we have the courageous peony, multifaceted, unique nature, let yourself be seen. Next, we have the 3 of Wands. We have intuition. Intuition. I think sometimes I'll be mumbling on here. When I go back through these videos, I'm like, I need to articulate a bit better. Okay, we have 4 of Swords. And we have you are amazing. These are just like cheesy little inspiration cards that I felt guided, I felt inspired to take. Okay, so my pile number 4 is interesting. I just noticed we have 2, we have 3, and then we have 4 here. 2, 3, 4. So we're getting a sense of progression. I am getting a sense too with this 4 of Swords and this intuition card that your next leap of faith has to do with something that you've been receiving, like something that you just feel a pull to naturally, right? I feel like this is something about putting yourself out there. Okay, this is something about taking a leap and, you know, not waiting for yourself to be perfect and to co-create with your higher self. I'm sorry, that's one of the reasons I feel like I was seeing this as like an extension of this. And with the owl, which reminds me of wisdom, and with intuition, this is really about, you know, co-creating with your higher aspect, co-creating with your higher self, and understanding you're not, you know, there might be a misperception within this group of like, okay, how I'm going to do it. And sometimes we can get overwhelmed with the how when we forget like where we're receiving that guidance from in the first place. And the same place that you're receiving the guidance from like wants you to succeed. It's not like it's this personal sense, this personal entity, but it's just like the Tao is a very natural place to exist, right? The Tao is like nature. It's the way. It's like really truly aligning with your own true nature. And when you do so, to see how you are playing the perfect part that you were meant to play. And when you're playing your perfect part, like the other elements are going to lock into place quite seamlessly, right? So this is really wanting you to co-create with your higher aspect. This is like if you are starting something, or maybe you have already started something and you're just like, you've been pointed, you've been like shifted your lens of perception, or your lens, not necessarily perception, but you're just your lens, right? Your sights have been shifted to going towards something, right? And like, be consistent, right? Actually taking, you know, this courageous peony, actually taking the courage and taking the leap, just moving in that direction, and not waiting for perfection, right? Or your own misperception of perfection, or your own ideas of perfection, and just doing it, right? That's like the Bhagavad Gita is one of the most sacred texts in India. And it talks about, you know, this exact thing of like living in the Tao, living in harmony. And what makes it so fulfilling is when we have released our ideas of where it's to bring us, and we're doing it because it just feels good, right? Right livelihood. Like this feels like right livelihood is always going to feel right, right? And it's like when you're not exploiting other people for money, and you're not, you know, doing shady shit, you know, to get a leg up and stepping on other people and other paradigms. But this is really like you're trusting in something much greater than yourself to guide the way, right? And the way that, you know, you support yourself from there, you feel good about, right? You don't feel like you're ripping people off or whatever. You just like, you can put, you know, you could stand, so to speak, this is like completely metaphorical, but you could stand at the pearly gates and be like, this is my place. Like, I deserve to be here. Right. And so your next leap of faith, I feel like, really has to do with, honoring your intuition, honoring where you've been pointed, and really, the thing about the Three of Wands is like, there's a certain confidence about, like, not only, this is after the two. So the Two of Wands is like, okay, I have multiple options. Which one feels the most exciting, right? And choosing to take the one that's the most exciting. So now with the Three of Wands, now it's like, okay, now I'm going to venture in this direction. I've made my decision. Now I'm going to venture in this direction. So to me, this is saying that, maybe what it is that you're doing requires you to really step outside of your comfort zone and to be seen in a new light. And maybe it's a version of yourself that other people are unfamiliar with. And maybe you've just been like a closet, whatever you do, closet philosopher or podcaster or teacher in some way or tarot reader, whatever it is. This could be so many different things. Ballet dancer, I don't know. But with the Four of Swords here, it might be something that, in the past, maybe you have opened up to people about and just like received not the best, like you felt a little bit judgy vibes or something, or maybe this is even you recovering from just being, misperceived, the black sheep in general. And you're like, do I really want to like really elevate that energy that has always been with me of like not fitting in somewhere, being so different? Do I really want to like become this moving target? But the thing is, here is Spirit is coming through tough and being like, the Three of Wands expects success and nothing less of that. Right. And so it's about like you will see and you will experience for it firsthand that you are this, right? I just saw 555. So like you'll experience big changes holistically, how you see yourself. And I am getting the sense that there are misperceptions in terms of like, I feel like what you see yourself to be and what is actually there, like what is actually written in the blueprint. And it's never like we become something. It's never like we're becoming who we're meant to be. It's like you're just removing all the bullshit that tells you a different story. And so I feel like as you go in this direction, that's why I say oftentimes your dharmic path purifies you, because the bullshit will be removed from your lens. Your lens, like you're polishing the mirror, right? And so the smoke and mirrors, right? And so you're seeing yourself more clearly. You're seeing your gifts more clearly, what you have to offer more clearly, but it's never before. It's never before you take the leap. It's always as you're doing it. And so it feels better and better. And that's why I feel, this is my experience, that's why I feel like we love like the process of growth. When you're on a path where you're consistently growing, why does that feel good? It's not because you have achieved perfection in any one moment. It's because you're polishing the mirror. So you're seeing a little bit more clearly. So you're a little bit more free. And that feels good. It doesn't matter that you're not the ultimate liberated version of yourself, but because you're a little bit more liberated than what you were, that feels good. And so that path is always going to feel good. It's always going to feel like more and more free, regardless if you understand or not, or you think you'll ever reach perfection in this lifetime, your perceived ideals of perfection. It's just the fact that you're consistently becoming more free feels amazing, right? And so that happens as you move in the direction of your dharma, and as you trust that to carry you, and as you trust the feeling, the sensation of that freedom, of becoming more calm within yourself, more integrated, much more like courage doesn't come from the outside, right? It comes from the inside out, and knowing that you are connected to something much greater, the same thing that exists within you exists within all of us. So what is there to prove? We only get this idea that we have something to prove when we're living from that very separate lens of reality, of like this which is not, it's fine, it's part of this experience. I'm not here to dog the ego or the sense of separateness, but when that's inclusive of the understanding that we're all cut from the same cloth, just like different parts of it are meeting itself, then that's when it becomes a much more enjoyable ride. And so, this leap of faith, I feel like you'll start to see how it's not wise to take yourself so seriously, right? And you've been receiving a lot of intuition, you've been receiving a lot of guidance in this direction. And so like, this is taking a leap and just being consistent. Some of you guys have already started something, and it's like Spirit wants you to be consistent, to make a plan or something, right? To give this intuition a healthy container so it can blossom. I continue to see this as just like a blossoming, an unearthing, an unraveling. And so like consistency is key, right? But there is something here that I feel like you guys are very aware of, that you should, I use that term lightly because there's, you know, do what the fuck ever you want to do, but that would feel really good if you did, right? And would feel like you're in harmony. When you feel like you're in harmony with nature and what you're here to do, that feels amazing. You feel amazing, right? And it doesn't matter like when you see the fruits of it, you're not worried about the fruits of it. You're not worried really about anything, and you're just consistently, again, becoming more free. You're consistently becoming much more connected to the great mystery, right? The fact that we're even here. You know, I think sometimes we can forget the fact that all of the components that have come together so perfectly in order to make, you know, oxygen, you know, all of these different things to make this a possible experience is crazy if you really think about it, right? And so I feel like this is just trusting yourself more and just like continuing on in the path that you set out for and not waiting for perfect, understanding that, you know, you've always been different. You're always going to be different, but you know, that's true confidence, is when you're like, okay, you just own it, right? And you're not running away from your uniqueness because you're embarrassed about it. And you're not also like putting your uniqueness on a pedestal because you want to be special, but it's just like, you're just playing your part, right? And so it's like this relaxed kind of joy, this true level of excitement, this true level of symbiosis with the world, you know, and just, you're just watching it unfold seamlessly. Right? So continue whatever it is that you've been guided to do, continue to do that, your intuition. If you're not sure what it is, I'm hearing that you'll unearth it more in meditation when you're in a relaxed state. And it generally has something to do with our deepest fears, right? Our deepest fears are very much so intertwined with our dharmic path and what we're here to contribute to the planet. Okay? Just one of the sneaky ways that spirit kind of dangles that carrot on a stick in front of us, and so we are much more likely to face those shadows, face those illusions, and to see them for what they are. It's a relevant part of this experience, but also, you know, it's a mirage, right? It's all here to add to this very rich experience that a human incarnation gives us the opportunity to experience and to live and to, you know, play in. So pile number 3, I'm going to leave this here for now. I hope this brought clarity, confirmation, and peace to your heart today. If it did, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment anything down below that you feel inspired to. Subscribe to my channel if you've been here before, and I really hope to see you soon. What is up, pile number 4? Here is your reading for your next leap of faith. We're going to dive right into it. So first, you guys have Milk and Honey. Next, you have the 7 Star Sisters, Birthing Creations, Tapestry of Life, Expression. Next, you have the 6 of Cups. You have the Third Eye. You have the 9 of Cups. And you have Become a Priority in your life. Okay, so right away, just want to point out you have 3 6s here, which in my book, that's a very good number. So 666, 6 is the number of humanitarianism. It's the number of being a teacher and utilizing your gifts, utilizing your voice to give back and to the planet in some way. So what I love about the Milk and Honey and the Birthing Creations in particular is this tells me, pile number 4, that your next leap of faith has to do with surrendering to what you've been receiving through your intuition. Okay, so both of these cards in their own way represent the beauty and the bounty that is inevitable when we are leaning not on our own understanding and we are following the nudges of divine self. So this is literally saying that a creative project wants to be birthed from you and through you. And that in so doing, if there's any fear, if there's any question, if one day it could be what sustains you long term, it's like, yes, because you tap into the magic when, like, accepting miracles and accepting divine synchronicities and divine appointments as the natural way. That's a choice, right? And so not everyone is making that choice, right? Not everyone is making the choice to lean more on their spiritual lens and lean more on connecting with like the source and the energy that makes this experience up in the first place, right? I mean, that's where I want to go to for my invitation in terms of what I'm going to do in life. Like, I want to go to the head honcho, you know what I mean? And so this is honestly telling me that whatever it is you're birthing, because we have the 9 of Cups, because we have the 6 of Cups, it most certainly has to do with like a sense of like a deep sense of emotional fulfillment that comes along from whatever work you're doing. Here with the 6 of Cups, I am seeing this as like, we see the hands reaching to grab whatever this person has to offer. So I feel like this really does have to do with you offering something to people. That could be something offering, like it could be tangible, it could be intangible, it could be through, the medium that we have available to us of like the internet, right? But I feel like this is essentially what wants to be birthed through you, has something to do with giving of your gifts, right? And it feels like a very natural extension of what you're already good at, a very natural extension of who it is that you came here to be. So this, because we have expression coming through and because we have the number 6 coming through so profoundly, I do feel like this has to do with you putting yourself out there in some kind of way and expressing your unique standpoint, your unique perspective, your unique finite perspective of infinity and infinite intelligence. And I was just telling a soul brother this the other day, like sometimes when I'm posting things that it's almost like the videos that I could potentially talk myself out of, convince myself out of posting, when I like bypass what the head is saying and I go with like, okay, this just feels really good. It's like those videos end up doing, or whatever, the content I put out ends up doing so well, or like being so well received, right? But and I've done that so many times. I've done that enough times that I've caught on to the fact that I cannot let the mind dictate. The mind will try to convince me out of something. The mind will be like, that's too far out there. The mind will be like, people aren't ready. People aren't going to understand. But when the heart is really the gateway, when the heart is, the gatekeeper, so to speak, of what it is you do and why you do it and when you do it, it's like the results are very profound, right? And a lot of the time it's almost the opposite of what your mind would have convinced you. So there's a lot of sweetness with the 9 of Cups. It's like ultimate fulfillment. It's ultimate fulfillment on the level of the heart. And so I feel like this really does have to do with connecting with other people and seeing how great it feels when you are just aligning with your own authentic voice and your own authentic expression. And there's nothing that you have to prove. But for my pile number 4s, because we have become a priority in your life, it might be like the biggest leap within all of this is just feeling like you're deserving of it, feeling like you're worthy of it, right? Because with the third eye here, we have like, I'm seeing someone who is very activated, who is very tuned in to, the astral realms, or at the very least, you have a good idea of what your preferred reality would look like, right? And so it's just about, sometimes it's not our fear of failure that holds us back. It's actually a fear of success and the responsibility that will then come along with that success. Well, you will be given all you need as you take the leap, as you go through whatever it is. And, to go back to that tangent of like, when I have posted those things, it's like I was telling a soul brother this because he's in this realm of like, has a lot of wisdom, and he literally, his guides are speaking to him through people. Like someone gave him, I've been telling him forever, I'm like, you need a voice, right? You already want to like do whatever the fuck you want with your life, but I can tell this is what he wants to do, but he's getting stuck here. And I'm like, you just do it. Like you have so much wisdom to share. And if I were to have held myself back because I believed the mind and the insecurities, then someone wouldn't have received their message, or a message that was going to help set them free in a certain way. I mean, I've come across random ass videos like that too, of like, sometimes the most profound videos are people or things that have changed my life are people that like have a very small following. And it's just like the way that they articulated something in a very specific way, like really clicked in a much more profound way than something that, someone with millions of followers might have said, and so we never know the impact of our voice and our unique expression. And we don't know who's actually missing out on that click and that profundity, that profound change that can happen in how they experience the nature of reality, right? And so I feel like there's a lot of sweetness with milk and honey and the 9 of Cups and the 6 of Cups. My oven just preheating, making potatoes today. But it's like there's a lot of sweetness that is here to be experienced. And I feel like it feels like this timeline feels very vibrant. It feels very aligned with the 9 of Cups and the become a priority in your life. I feel like it is you might have written it off as being almost too good to be true. And so maybe you aren't taking the steps, or maybe you just feel like it's so far out, or like you're just beginning, or whatever it is. And it's like, you're on your timeline. Or like, if you haven't merged with it yet, this is your timeline. Whatever you're like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, right? Like, my friend has had people, like, I've been telling him, he had like some guy that, you know, just someone that, he works in like a customer service kind of field. I don't really know how else to explain what he does, but someone was like, oh my gosh, like, you should take this. He essentially gave him a tripod to start recording videos. And like, he's had so many, I'm like, your guides are out like screaming at you by speaking through other people that are like, you, like, can you teach? Like, you should be teaching. This guy was like, if you were to post, I would like tune into all of your stuff. Right. And so like, in the interesting ways, like, listen to what your guides are saying through other people, especially, and just through the synchronicities that you're getting of like what you're good at. Because I am seeing that you do have something very unique to offer that feels like a very authentic extension of your soul stream. And it has to be, in order for something to attract the type of prosperity that we want and that we desire, that to sustain us so that we can live comfortably, so we can continue to execute on our dharma, right? That's part of dharma, is having the means to execute on it. Right? Having the means to continue to put out our message, or whatever it is we're doing, and to travel and to meet, right? That's part of it. So it's not like we have this weird backwards way of thinking, especially people that are very empathic, very sensitive, very, you know, in the spiritual communities, where we've developed this weird relationship to money. But it's like, no, that's actually a very ancient understanding, is that in order to execute your dharma, you need to have the resources to do so. So that's going to be given to you once you lock into it, right? Because it's almost like this foolproof way, because you would do it for free, right? But it becomes, even when you're locked into your dharma, right? But it becomes even more of a beautiful dance when you can start to, your outreach becomes bigger, and you can host events or whatever it is that you're guided to do, where essentially your gifts and your expression and your content, your material, whatever you're releasing, whatever you're putting out, it actually can grow in its own. It can grow in its own effectiveness when you then couple it with having resources, right? So it's all this beautiful unfolding. It's all a beautiful journey, but you know you're tapped into it essentially when you're doing it because it's helping expand consciousness. You're doing it because it's helping uplift people. It's bringing people deeper into themselves and to connect with their own soul stream, right? You're doing it because you don't, you know, if you really didn't have to do anything else, you would be doing it anyways. And so I feel like it feels very sweet. There's a lot of fulfillment that you will feel when you're tuning into this timeline, right? When you're like, oh my gosh, those things that you're like, that would be so cool if, right? If I could, you know, start this thing and it could sustain me, and, you know, I could make this much a month. It's like, in this day and age, with the way the internet is structured, it's like, that is all possible, right? It is like our wildest dreams, even like 50 years ago, is now possible, right? To live a life where we're really much so, it's less about like feeling like we have to sell our soul just to survive, and we can really tune into, okay, what brings the soul alive, and then having that be a sustainable thing. So whatever it is that feels authentic and that you're expressing yourself, and, you know, the things that you've been getting downloads and divine guidance and synchronicity about, continue to do that if you're already doing it, right? Just keep going. And at the very least, for a few of you that haven't started, it's like, or however many haven't started, like, do that. Take the leap and just get moving in that direction, and releasing your attachment to the results or how it should look, or the timeline. That's the tricky thing. Is sometimes I think, you know, especially with this law of attraction bullshit, depending on who you ask, we can expect to become overnight successes, or for it to blow up overnight. And while that can be the case for some people, in my experience, that's not the case for many, right? And so it really is about this unraveling, because you're working with different levels of your own karma and your own clearing, your own purification. And so it really is about enjoying the journey, and you enjoy it more when you actually enjoy what you're doing. And when, again, you're releasing the fruits, and you just know things are going to work out. You just know life is meant to be celebrated. You are meant to be celebrated. Your expression is meant to be celebrated. You know, not putting yourself as being more or less special than anyone else, but understanding that you have a unique key to the whole that only you can fulfill, right? And so, yeah, I am seeing that there's a lot of people that would greatly benefit from whatever it is that you have to offer, and it's through this giving and them receiving, and this like beautiful dance that we play with other people that you will feel so deeply fulfilled, right? So deeply fulfilled and surprised, honestly, about how much of a difference that you make in the lives of these beings that are going to meet you or that are, you know, continuing to meet you. Because again, some of you are already well on this journey, and it's just about your next leap of faith is just like, okay, it's just going to continue to get better and brighter and more sustainable holistically. And so maybe eventually the next leap of faith will be cutting off any other like security-based incomes and letting this be the full thing that sustains you and supports you, right? So I'm going to leave this reading here for now, pile number 4. Thank you for being here. If this video resonated, please give it a thumbs up. Comment anything down below that you're guided to. Subscribe to my channel if you've been here before, and I hope to see you soon. What's up, group number 5? Here is your guys' reading for your next leap of faith. So you guys have the Chaos and Conflict card coming up. And it's what's really interesting about this card, you guys, is that at first I was just going to do 4 piles. This almost came up for pile 3, but there were a few cards that flipped out, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel right. I'm just going to put it back. If it's meant to be, it'll come up. And then this one didn't end up coming up for pile 3, obviously. But it wasn't until pile 4 that I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be doing 5 piles. And then I actually saw this flip over again, and I was like, okay, it really wanted to come through, okay? So Chaos and Conflict. Next leap of faith for pile 5, you're not alone, isolation, physical connection, community. You have the 10 of Pentacles, the waiting game, the 7 of Swords, and rise by lifting others. So pile 5. The Chaos and Conflict card discusses, this is about feeling like you are at cross purposes, or this could be like conflicting purposes with other people. Like maybe you work in an environment where this, like for an example, it could be like you work in an environment where you think the best way to execute a project is one way and someone else thinks it's another way, right? This Chaos and Conflict card may be like your next leap of faith is finding what feels right to you and deciding for yourself what the right way to go is and not taking no for an answer. I feel like this also is saying that this has to do with like trusting other people again. And I feel like with the 10 of Pentacles and rise by lifting others, this to me is saying that I feel like you could very well do fine just by yourself, right? And fine, like making it on your own, doing what you got to do, whatever you do to get by, right? There is also an entrepreneurial sense behind this, but I feel like your next leap of faith is learning how to trust other people again. And we learn to trust other people to the extent that we have learned to trust ourselves. And so the more that you give yourself permission to tune in to your own soul stream, right? It's like you are not alone, speaks on like, essentially it's the older the soul, the deeper the cave, right? And so this speaks on like being fine in isolation. But I feel like this next leap of faith has to do with trusting other people again and letting other people back in. And because the 7 of Swords to me is like, you know, an individual that's looking over their shoulder, like for some reason you've almost learned that you can't trust other people and that you'll be betrayed, and you know, humanity might tend to let you down. Okay, join the club, right? But I feel like I can feel that your guides are coming through and saying that you've gone through a lot of up-leveling, right? You've gone through a lot of growth over time. And so if you haven't given yourself permission to see where you're at and to see the types of relationships that you can now attract into your experience, then it's time to trust that, right? It's time to, at the very least, accepting offers. If people offer to like hang out, new people, right? Some of you guys might be in a period where you don't have very many friends. Like you've made this transition, or you're in a transition. You're in that weird period between the old paradigm and the new one where you want the new connections. You want the new friendships. And at some point you were probably fine with not having that. And so I feel like, you know, what you do in work might be much more elevated. Like your passion projects, what it is that you feel like you're here to contribute to the planet might be elevated if you accept those invitations from other people to work together, right? There's a lot here about, yes, you could do fine on your own, pile 5, but it's like, how much more of a beautiful dance can it be when you're doing it with people that are at your level? Because I'm seeing that you might have experienced some of that very normal kind of persecution energy that old souls can tend to experience, where they just see so beyond the normal paradigms. What's considered normal doesn't mean it's right. It's just the average levels of consciousness, and being beyond that, and then going through the persecution that goes along with, seeing reality a lot different, and so probably making a lot different life choices than most people around you. And so maybe you've experienced some of that persecution and, family turning on you, people talking shit about you, people not understanding you. And so you're like, I'd rather do this alone. Like I don't need this extra chaos and conflict in my life. And maybe to an extent too, you've been holding back your own purpose because you feel like, you would rather just, be fine in your own isolation, where people don't have the opportunity to misperceive you because they don't even have the opportunity to get to know you. But I feel like I'm getting a sense here of you basing what is possible off of older paradigms, and not, your next leap has to do with giving new people a chance and understanding that there are people out there. Like, if I would have stayed in my own relative paradigms and not had taken the leap of faith to like make certain phone calls to people, to reach out to certain people in certain communities, people that I see that were involved in same teachings or in the same teachers, like my paradigm would probably feel very lonely, right? But because I have one soul sister in particular, it's about quality, not quantity, right? Where I feel like I'm just speaking to another me, like no filters, no worrying if this person will misunderstand me, this entity, this being. And how grateful I feel, and that's only occurring more and more because I'm trusting, right? Because I also, relating to pile 5, if I were to base what I think is possible off of what I've experienced from people in the past, I would want nothing to do with humanity, because there's been a lot of shitty things that have happened, and bullying and backtalking. So, this is essentially saying that you're a new person. And like, if I don't really know where I left off because my daughter came out, but I feel like I was saying something about bullying, and if I had based what I thought was possible off of that, I wouldn't have taken the chance. But I'm so grateful that I've allowed myself to open up, because truly that is where, yes, I absolutely need time alone. And I relish, that isolation. That's the mark of an old soul, the hermit type of energy, because you feel so fulfilled by your own soul stream. Right? I feel like pile 5 has taken a lot of time to really get to know themselves, because you do come from a lot of internal chaos and conflict that has forced you into a certain direction. Or maybe that's part of this invitation, that once you go through enough of this waiting game, feeling like you're evolving, giving yourself that time to really figure out who you are, once that early childhood blueprint is set in place and catalyzes you in a certain direction, all necessary, all part of this individual incarnation. Right? Once that's set into place and you understand what it's like to be by yourself, and you're nourished because you're connecting to your own soul stream, right? You're not necessarily taking your cues from the outside in. It's like, then the leap is in sharing that brilliance and that beauty with other people. Because it's great being alone and having those moments, and it's necessary, but it becomes so much more fulfilling when you really do see the self in others, and you meet such clear beings, clear reflections of the divine, and people with very pure hearts, and it gives you a sense of faith in humanity. It really restores that, because for my pile number 5s, you guys might just have had a lot more evidence supporting the distrust, the mistrust in humanity, and people not understanding you. But it's like, give life an opportunity to prove you otherwise, or to prove otherwise to you. Right? And so now a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I would consider more of like soul family, and that get to know the deepest parts of me that other people don't, a lot of them, a few of them, a handful, live near me, but most of them don't. They're in like the UK, they're in Canada, they're different parts of the US, right? So I feel like there's a lot here about the fulfillment is going to only be amplified when you let other people in. And when you know, even if you're teachers, you guys can have this sense of like, I have a community, but still there's a lack of fulfillment because there might be still a sense of I can't trust people, or I can't let people in, or there's like, they're not going to understand me. There's nothing that is more fulfilling than being, because you guys are probably the teachers or the advice givers. You've probably been like this for most of your life, right? And so when you have opened up in the past, it's probably not gone as well, or people weren't able to hold the same space that you were able to hold, because most of the people in your reality were probably operating from paradigms that were more contracted than your own. And so of course they're not going to, good advice when you're existing here isn't here because they can, it's not encompassing, it's not beyond where you're at. So good advice is like people that are in your realms, or even more so expanded, like our teachers and our mentors, and probably the people that you go to for advice, or people that have already died, or people whose teachings have been left behind, or whatever, because you're so expanded. So your next leap of faith is in understanding there are people on this planet that are within the same realms that you are, and they want to connect, and you guys want to uplift each other, right? It's really about stepping beyond this thing of feeling so like, sometimes we can get so self-righteous in our idea that we're so unique and we're such a black sheep. It can almost become this self-righteous narrative to where we don't give life permission to prove us otherwise, and just to show you that there are some very normal seeming wise people out there. Like I don't listen to this I haven't been on this YouTube channel in years, but when I first started my journey, there was this great channel called Buddha at the Gas Pump. And what I love about that name is it's like, there's Buddhas everywhere, right? In this modern day culture, they might not walk around with robes and live in a monastery, but there's very wise beings pumping their gas, living a normal daily modern life, right? And so I feel like this is really your leap is in trusting people again. Your leap is in knowing that you can hold true to your soul's purpose and also be met with respect and understanding, because maybe that's not something you've been met with in the past, for sure. Right, so there's a lot here about community, a lot about not just being the person that other people go to, but finally giving yourself, like, it feels so good when you finally have people that you can go to and you actually truly feel better, right? And you don't walk away feeling like even more misunderstood, or like now you have to explain yourself to this person, but it's like people that are really meeting you where you're at. Right, so this is building community, enhancing community, knowing you can stay true to yourself. Your next leap of faith really is like putting yourself out there and accepting invitations to network and to collaborate, etc., and not overthinking it and not putting on a front, but just like being your authentic self. Right, rise by lifting others. It's that's the only way to do it in this day and age, truly, because we're out of the age of the guru and we're in the age of collective wisdom. So pile number 5, I'm going to leave this reading here for now. Please like this video at the very least if it resonated. Comment any synchronicities down below. Subscribe to my channel if you've been here before, and I hope to see you soon.